Hi, welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast series, where you develop the skills and tools to build a mindset for success. For more videos and content, visit our website at www.bodybrainintegration.com.
Hi guys, welcome to our interview with Martin Rooney. Now this has been one I've been extremely excited to run. Martin's had a huge influence over my personal philosophy, and he's really making some major changes in the way we think about health and fitness. So for those of you who might be unfamiliar with Martin's the man behind Training for Warriors, and one of his taglines, which is really powerful, is Martin says, training for warriors is all about releasing the warrior within. So it's really about learning how to strengthen the character of a person, not just the physical body. And as you know, this is something I talk about a lot and am very passionate about. So, I really hope you get a lot out of this interview today. So hi, Martin, welcome.
Hey, my pleasure, and always excited to share with Down Under. So I'm pumped up about this one as well.
Sensational. So I think that the first question to get us started, Martin, is can you tell us a little bit about your background? So obviously you were training a lot of UFC fighters, a lot of athletes, but then something clicked in you and you thought, you know what? I can move this over into the general population space and start making a bigger difference. So can you tell us a little bit about that background and how it came to be where it is today?
Absolutely, and I'll try to keep it brief, but
yeah.
So because what you just summarized was 20 years in 2 seconds. But so how it all worked was I was an athlete in college in track and field, and sports was always a huge part of my life as well as fitness. And after college, I went to the Medical University of South Carolina and got my degree in physical therapy and my master's in exercise science. And still, I was so interested in fitness, but I thought therapy would be the route to make that happen for me. And interesting enough, I made the U.S. bobsled team in that period, and I got to represent the United States and travel around the world. And I got to see athletics at the highest level, which only strengthened more that I wanted to be around fitness. And then I became an orthopedic therapist and quickly realized that was not going to be the way to be around fitness. But unfortunately, I spent years and years of my life still doing it. Now, I say unfortunately not because I didn't enjoy it, but I say unfortunately because it wasn't my true passion. It wasn't my true purpose. And I started to look for that. And it was from the signs, the knot in my gut every Monday morning when I'd go to work, or just the lack of energy that I had and passion for what I was doing. And I don't want to dissuade anybody and make them think that therapy's not a good thing. It was just, it wasn't my thing, or I knew there was more. So I started traveling to seminars and I started getting involved in different martial arts. And between the Parisi Speed School and meeting the Gracie family, I got back into fitness. And although so many people told me it was crazy or something I shouldn't do, I found in life that a lot of times when most of the world's telling you not to do something, it might be a good thing for you. And so we created the Parisi Speed School, which has now 80 locations, and we've trained almost 1 million kids in the United States. But as you mentioned, I started working with high-level athletes, in particular fighters. And in particular, those fighters, I started to create a style of training that eventually became called Training for Warriors. And that style started to spread fast, not just amongst the fight community, but also regular people. And that's when I knew, wow, there was a bigger mission here with obesity and diabetes and cancer and all these diseases so high. It was just kind of interesting that this could be something that I could make a much greater impact or leave a much greater signature behind when I'm gone from the game. And it became my passion. I started traveling the world doing workshops, which turned into clinics, which turned into certifications. And then people started running the program officially with our license around the world. And now we have 220 locations in almost 30 countries, and 10,000 people a day are going through the program. And it's just amazing every day, the emails and the results, just the stories that I'm getting of how this is impacting people's lives. And I couldn't be more fired up about it. But hey, I summarized it quick, but that's the interesting journey. And I think the big lessons for all the listeners is you got to find your passion, you got to chase it down, and you should always be looking on what you can do to create a larger impact on more people. And if you do those things, you're going to have endless energy, and you're going to be excited every day when you wake up. And I know, because it's worked for me.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome. Martin, I've seen a lot of your presentations, and one thing that you talk about a bit is mental fortitude. So what do you mean when you talk about mental fortitude?
Well, I guess the simplest thing is that the mind has to be strong for the body to follow. And one of the biggest challenges I see is it's not that people can't eat right, and it's not that they can't get enough sleep, and it's not that they don't know those things either. What happens is that they don't have the fortitude, the strength of mind to be able to fight the small battles every day. It's what I call it. Like every time you eat, there's a small battle that has to be won. Every time you have to get to bed, there's this small battle that has to be won. And it doesn't really involve physical strength. It involves the strength of your mind. But what's interesting is I believe the stronger your body becomes, the stronger your mind becomes as well. So they're so interrelated. And so therefore, in my Training for Warriors system, I have created training and activities or every day that we're strengthening both. So we're not called Workout for Warriors. It's not just you show up, get beat up, and then go home. I want people to become more, not just physically, but also mentally as a result of this program. And I'm watching it happen. And as people win those small battles every day, their fortitude increases and they're able to, get closer to their goals.
Yeah, cool. Now, Mark, one thing that I want to delve into a bit is your take on relationships in terms of the client-trainer relationship, and also how other relationships in your life can affect your performance. Because one of the key things that comes up when you talk is, not making somebody just a better athlete or better performer in the gym, but making people better parents and better sons and uncles and all that sort of thing. So why do you think that's so important?
Well, I would hope everyone would agree. If the world were filled with better people and stronger people, a lot of the problems that exist today would go away. And ultimately, I think physical fitness is one of the vehicles to help make that happen. If we could get more people off medication, if we could get more people just in a healthier status, all things would get better. Now, what I mean by that too is, hey, if people can get through a tough workout, then there's no excuse that they can't be a better parent or a better coach or develop better relationships or be a better worker at their job. And these are constant and consistent messages that are delivered in our system every day. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with that. Somebody right now could be listening and say, oh, hey, does it really make you a better person? And what I would argue is, yeah, if the coach relationship with the people that come in, if that can be created the right way, yeah. And that's exactly what people should be looking for. So I guess the answer to that one is it important? Absolutely. But is it something that most people focus on? Not really. Anybody can teach somebody a Turkish get-up or a kettlebell swing, but that doesn't mean you've done anything for that person outside of those 45 minutes you've beat them up. In my system, in Training for Warriors, we want to make sure that we affect the other hours that person is not with you as well.
Yeah, I agree totally. One of my good friends, Mart, is Mark Mariani, and he runs a Training for Warriors arena over in Thailand. And I've met a couple of guys through the work I've done at AIK here in Australia, and it changes people's lives. Like there was a guy, Brett McBain, who went over there, and dude, if there's somebody who's an advocate for Training for Warriors, it's Brett. He came along to one of the workshops we were doing, and he had the Training for Warriors hat on, the Training for Warriors t-shirt. He had the shorts, wristband, the whole get up. And the thing was, just to give people a bit deeper of an insight as to what it's about, he said it changed his life because he was going through some pretty tough stuff in terms of his own personal relationship and, struggling with work and so forth. And he came back a different person. So I think it gives kudos to you and your system as to how powerful it can be to really change where somebody's at, not just physically, but also their whole take on things. So, I just wanted to share that with you because it was really powerful to see that.
Yeah, well, hey, Brett and Mark are not only people that are officially running our program, but I also consider them friends. And it's amazing. You never understand the power of an interaction. I can remember the first time meeting Mark, and we spent a few hours after the course that I teach, which I'll be teaching again in Sydney in November. And Mark was there, and he was looking for something in his life. He wanted to do more, and he wanted to be more. And I said, man, what do you want to do? And he said, man, I want to go to Thailand, and I want to do this program. Mark's an American. And I said, man, then you got to do it, and we're behind you. And he did it, and he's just been not only inspiring so many people, but he inspired Brett. And he inspired Brett to get involved with to come to the course. He came to the course in Melbourne. Brett is from Brisbane. And, man, I didn't know about the story you just shared until much later when Brett shared it with me, and it just showed the responsibility we have as coaches, the responsibility we have as people for other people. And hey, I'm willing to accept that responsibility. And what I do with my program every day is I challenge everybody else to do that as well. So maybe the take-home message for everybody listening, and this is an important one if you're a coach, it's you never know who you're talking to. And you never know when something you might say could have an incredible impact on somebody's life. So you have to always be prepared for that. And that is a big piece of our philosophy at Training for Warriors. Yeah,
definitely. So I find that in the industry a lot, that sometimes trainers tend to pick and choose who they want to talk to and only want to chase money. And I think the system and the philosophy that you guys have at Training for Warriors really sort of pulls people away from that and really focuses in on integrity and relationships, which is a real missing link from my own personal belief in the industry as a whole. Now, one thing I'd like to touch on with you as well, Mart, is I believe you practice what you preach really well. And just prior to starting the podcast, we briefly touched on the fact that, you're a father. And for those people who haven't seen some of Martin's kids, Mart really involves them in the philosophy. So he's really setting them up for improving their self-esteem, their confidence, developing their belief systems. And I remember seeing a video not long ago with Sophia, and Sophia was doing this analogy where I think the video was called a Wake Up to Parents. And what it was all about, she was like carrying this big, I think it was like a Dynamax ball and saying, I'm not allowed to carry a Dynamax ball, but I can carry out the trash, can't I? And then she did a chin up and she goes, well, I can do it. I can climb a tree, but I'm allowed to do a chin up. And I think what you're doing, Martin, in terms of inspiring, your kids to really take on your legacy and really adopt it into their lifestyles, it's going to really set them up for success. So I think that's incredibly powerful in terms of having a legacy and also making sure that not only do you leave your kids with, money and so forth, which is the number one priority for a lot of people, but leaving them with a physical legacy and a mental legacy and being able to inspire them and gear them for success later in life. So a little bit of a spiel there, but my question, Martin, is regarding a legacy, is there a certain mental or physical legacy that you want to leave your girls?
Well, absolutely. I think you've touched on so many things. And when you think of the word legacy, I mean, one is just your children in general become your legacy. I mean, they live on, in most cases after you are gone, and your philosophy and the message and the lessons that you taught them, what better way to be remembered or live on into the future than through your own kids. And hey, I don't have any special techniques, and I wouldn't say I would never claim to be the best dad in the world, but I will say, hey, I've got 4 daughters. I got a great relationship with them, and I've made physical activity part of their life, as well as eating well and just understanding the importance of sleep. So I guess what you hit on there is whether you want to say practice what you preach or authenticity, but I want everybody to know out there the things that I talk about, they're good enough for my kids, so they would be good enough for you. And it's something that I can believe in. But I'll also challenge everyone out there that, hey, kids will work out and they'll enjoy it and they'll be active, but you have to do it first. So if you're not a role model and you just sit on the couch or you eat all the wrong foods, then don't be shocked when that happens to your children as well. So part of that responsibility that I talked about before is, hey, to be a parent, they need to see me training. They need to see me eating well, and then it becomes much easier for them to do it too. So, when I talk about legacy, of course, through my kids, that's one way I want to be remembered. And then through this organization that we're creating, where I really do have a vision that it's going to be much bigger than me and live on much longer than I do. And that is, since I've started with that vision that way, I'm building this organization to make sure that that happens. So that word legacy, I think, now as I'm getting older, has only become more and more important to me, because in life, I think everybody listening, if you're a 20-year-old trainer right now or a 30-year-old trainer right now, hey, you might not get it yet, but someday it's not going to be about the things you own or the cool stuff you got. It's going to be about this great thing that you left behind for the world to remember you by. And hey, I'm not an architect. I'm not a surgeon. I'm not a musician. I'm not a scientist, but what I am real good at is motivating people and fitness, and that is the area that I've chosen to leave my mark, and I'm doing everything in my power to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I like to talk about a similar thing in regards to the legacy with the people I work with, and one of them is exactly what you're talking about in regards to practicing what you preach. So sometimes if you ask someone, what sort of legacy, physical legacy do you want to leave your kids? And they'll say, showing them how important exercise is and always being active, not sitting on the couch all day. And then asking the person, what's different between what you currently do as a parent and what you want your kids to do? Because then it can really open your eyes and make you go, geez, maybe I need to change what I'm doing, because as we know, kids do as we do, not as we say. So I think that's really important as well. Now, Mark, regarding some of your training styles, a lot of people are really excited about the hurricane style workouts that you do. And one thing that I admire about you is the fact that you don't hang on to information. It's not like you tuck it all away in the box. You're like, oh, no one's going to hear this. It's all my secret stash. And you're really big on trying to get as much info out there as you can to help as many people as you can. So regarding like the hurricane workout, for example, a lot of your training has a lot of sprinting as a staple in there. Now, for a lot of listeners who might be new to training or new to fitness, there's this old myth that, you walk for 45 minutes in the morning before breakfast and it helps burn all your fats around. But I haven't really heard you talk about that too much. And I understand with a lot of your workouts, sprinting is a staple. So what would you say to those people who think that walking is key for changing your shape and burning fat?
Well, hey, these are all things that maybe people have heard before, and I won't discourage people. If somebody's on the couch and at least they want to start walking, hey, go for it. Walking is better than sitting. But current literature and science is also showing that if you look through history, walking was never the activity that produced the body style that most people desire. So for instance, when someone looks at that athletic body type, or they want to look like that Olympic athlete, rarely did that person's training revolve around walking for 45 minutes and that's it. And that might be a logical way to look at it. But now current science is showing that, hey, the intensity of the exercise that you do, and then also the brevity of it, but then repeating it multiple times through the week may be the better way to burn that fat and maintain that muscle mass. And that's really the philosophy that we follow in training for warriors. Now, the word sprint, hey, let's just think, hey, faster movements. So sometimes when I use the word sprint, people get scared. There might be a person you haven't moved in a while, or you're in your 40s or 50s, you might say, sprinting, wow, that's dangerous for me. Mm-hmm. And the first answer I would have is, well, sitting on the couch and eating bad food, that's dangerous for you. But sprinting to one person can be very different than sprinting to someone else. So sprinting for a footy player that's 20 is very different than, hey, a 40-year-old weekend warrior that just wants to, get in better shape. And in our system, we have lots of variety for everybody. So I would never want to scare anybody with it. But what I would want people to understand is, hey, walking a couple times a week, you can go do that. But you got to make sure that you're also resistance training and doing some more high velocity movements throughout the week as well. And that's really what our system is based on. And the results that ours produce and the changes in people that are happening, I know someday there will be even more science behind to show what happens at the brain, what happens with the immune system through this style of training. So I'm only excited about it, but as you said too, hey, I'm not here to discourage anyone from training, but it sometimes takes a little time to get people to understand what we're doing,
I saw a lecture you did, must have been from a few years ago, Mart, that it was only a short one. It was at a fitness conference, and you were talking exactly about that, about a system, and you used this great analogy, which I thought was brilliant. You asked, is there anyone out in the audience who's pretty tough, pretty strong? And a few people were joking around and pointed out this one guy. He walked up the front and you had a leather belt and you said, try break this belt in half. So the guy's pulling it and pulling it and pulling it, and he had no success. And despite the fact that this guy was strong and he had the desire to break it, one of the take-homes from that lecture was you didn't have a system to do it. So what you showed was twisting the belt. I can't remember exactly how you did it, but I think you twisted the belt a certain way first and then started sort of jimming it around and the belt separated. And it was just a really cool analogy to show people that sometimes working hard all the time and pushing yourself 100% isn't the best system. And I think that's a huge missing link, particularly from what I've seen in the health and fitness industry in Australia, is that a lot of people will go out and they'll learn new exercises. They'll learn how to use a lot of new tools because it's exciting. But one thing that I'm really looking forward to when I see your workshop in Sydney this November is really delving in and understanding the system. So do you think that a lot of trainers and coaches out there have a lot of skill, but not necessarily a good system?
Well, hey, I would probably answer that. And right now we have a guest appearance right here where my 2-year-old has just entered my office and she is standing by the door, and this is a first, so I do not know what is about to happen. So stay with me on this. But well, hang on. Now all the listeners will get to hear it. What are you doing, Sasha? What is it? Oh yeah. Okay, we'll go upstairs. Daddy's you could go get the ferret. Thanks for the tip. And now she's laughing. So for everyone listening, I've just been put on notice that the ferret has been released in our house and is running around free. But okay, and I'm gonna see if she goes. Okay, go get it. Thanks. No? Okay, you're gonna stay here? Okay, well she'll get to stay and listen. But so hang on. So to answer that question, what I would say is, hey, everybody's system can always be better. So I'm never going to be one to point fingers and say, hey, this person doesn't know this or this person doesn't know that. But what I would say is everybody's system can be at a different level of development. And hey, now 20 plus years into the training game, I feel that I'm continually refining the system, but maybe my system is more advanced than maybe where somebody 2 or 3 years in is starting. And but what I would agree is, hey, just working harder or trying to just know more techniques, or even worst case scenario, just making other people work way harder, that isn't always the best way to I can't call that a system. That's just called smashing people, so maybe to define it for everybody listening, hey, what's your system on fat loss? What's your system on nutrition? What's your system on how to build muscle? And if you don't really have answers beyond, well, I just do a bunch of stuff that I saw someone else do, that isn't really a system that will work. Or worse, hey, well, I just saw a lot of cool stuff on YouTube, so now I do that. Where, as you said, I've spent a lot of time really not just researching, but also really trying to understand my philosophy and system and what I believe so that I can share it with someone else. So, and now that's what I spend a particular amount of my time now teaching around the world. So, hey, for anybody listening, if you just said to yourself, yeah, you know what? I don't know what my nutrition system is, right? I can't really stand on firm ground about what my philosophy is for strength training or fat loss. Then, hey, that's good news. And it just shows you have to continue to find more information and get better. And so everybody listening to, and you never get there, you're always on the hunt for more. And that same goes for me.
Yeah. Now, for just everyone listening, I just want to make you aware as well, this won't be a very long interview because Martin's got a workshop starting in about an hour. So we're just going to have a couple more questions. So, Mart, one thing I want to get your perspective on is, and this is something that I ask all the guys I interview, is the topic of intention. Because sometimes you can be a great trainer, you can have all the knowledge in the world and be very scientific and so forth. But I'm a firm believer that people are smart, and if they have a feeling that you're an inconvenience to them or you're just another number and your intention isn't there, that can affect their experience and affect their self-belief and confidence. So what's your take on that, Mark?
Yeah, so I would agree 100%. And instead of the word intention, the word that I usually use in this case is expectation. So what I always say is, hey, what is the expectation that I have for someone? Do I think they're going to be this great person? Do I think that they're going to lose fat or build muscle? Do I think they're going to reach their goals? Do I think they're going to enjoy the class? And those expectations will definitely relate back to the experience that I create and my own actions in a session. So what I've learned to do is I've got to always challenge my expectations for someone else. And hey, it's difficult. I've put myself in difficult situations where, hey, I might have mentioned that, yes, I've trained high level athletes. And hey, I've worked with professional sports teams and military organizations, but I've also worked with handicapped kids and kids with real physical and mental challenges. And you know what? To have an expectation of those kids is much more difficult, and that may enhance the way that I train someone too. So I've tried to always forge my skills and be more, because we can never be the one that decides what can or can't happen. You've just got to have the best expectation for someone and go for it. And when you do that, they know it and everything is better. So, and what you're talking about there is really, that has nothing to do with how much you know about training. That has nothing to do with how many exercises you're aware of. That has to do with who you are as a person and your current level of development as a man or a woman. And those are great things that are always challenged when you want to be a great trainer. And that's the kind of stuff that gets me excited now.
Yeah. So if you had to give some advice to the trainers and coaches listening as to how they might inspire their clients or their athletes to do a little bit of soul searching and help strengthen their character, what would be a simple tip you might give them?
Well, the simplest tip is you've got to build trust with those people. I think most people forget about this, that you can't make any of those things happen. You can't make people get results, and you're not going to make people change their behaviors and their habits until they really trust you and they believe in you. And that's what I spend so much time on. Now, part of that is that you've got to do it too. Hey, don't ask somebody to eat well if you don't eat well. They're just not going to believe you and they're not going to trust you. But when your stuff is on point and you're really giving your best effort and they know it and they know that you care, that's when the magic is going to happen. And again, for all the young trainers and anybody listening there, and that doesn't cost anything. It just costs effort and for you to be a better person. And that is free. So it's interesting that, hey, I'll be bold enough to say this. I'm not the most knowledgeable person in the world. There's probably people that know PhDs and other guys that know way more about every single aspect of something I know about. But my ability to be enthusiastic, my ability to care and set high expectations for people and really build trust because they know I want them to really do well, I think that might be the biggest secret of all. And unfortunately, nobody's teaching that. And that's why I've begun teaching it at my courses all over the world.
Very, very powerful stuff. So Martin, one thing that Nick Winkelman said, which I'd like to share with you, is when you guys spoke together at Perform Better, I think it was, he was listening to one of your talks. And one thing that you do when you open up is you always give thanks to your family for being understanding and supportive of what you do in regards to trying to change the state of our industry and the state of the health of the world, essentially. And you said, thank you to my family for being understanding and giving me the opportunities to go and speak and spend this time. So I think that's something that is missing quite prominently in regards to a lot of health and fitness professionals. So regarding having good family relationships and supporting one another, do you think that's really important to allow each other to really thrive and achieve your goals or each other's goals?
Yeah, again, absolutely. And hey, I said it before, and nobody's perfect. I'm always trying to get better. But I wrote a blog recently, which is interesting because, hey, we have our limitations. I mean, we've got 4 small girls in the house. It can be wildfire sometimes. And but I do know my family is behind me. I do know they're on board with what we're doing. But maybe even more powerful is even with my wife, who's highly involved with training for warriors and within the company. But now even the physical and mental changes she's made. So I just wrote a blog recently about our relationship and how it changed as fitness became more important to her again after our 4th child. And there was an outpouring from around the world of just how many people this resonated with, that not only do you have to support each other, but when a family's ideals or their visions are aligned, everything gets better. And I have to say, for people, you can check that blog out. And I think I believe it was called It All Changed with Just One Chin Up. And man, hey, relationships are not easy. They require constant work and effort, but the effort is worth it. But we've got to each make that effort and do our best, and not sometimes be so stubborn. And I think that was stuff, hey, I'm definitely culprit of being those things, but we were able to come through some of those things. And that story actually became very inspiring for many people around the world. So absolutely, to answer it again, without a doubt, having people aligned and then your family being behind you. Because when I wake up, I don't always feel like it. I don't always feel like being enthusiastic or this person. But then I know my kids are counting on me. They have this expectation of their dad. And I remember why I do it. And it goes back to where we started with that legacy. And that becomes my inspiration each day to be more.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I know you've got a course starting in the next half hour or so, Martin. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us today. And I was so excited to do this interview. Like in Australia, we started the interview at 6, but I was up at 4 just getting my notes together and getting the interview ready. So I think it's been a lot of fun. Now, the last thing I want to sort of mention is for all the guys in Australia, in this November, Martin's coming out to run his course in Sydney. So I absolutely recommend that you all get down and check it out. I'm going to be there personally as well. And as you've heard time and time again, Training for Warriors is a really powerful system because it not only looks at the physical body, but it looks at the person as well. And as a lot of the listeners know, this is something I'm truly passionate about. And I think Martin's a true advocate for change and helping to change the way we look at health and fitness. So Martin, I really appreciate what you're trying to do. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you in Sydney.
Hey, well, my pleasure. And last year, I did Sydney last year. It quickly got on the top of my list for favorite cities. It was so surreal to stand there in the harbor and see everything. And I just knew I had to come back just from the response. And there's just such a great mentality about fitness in Australia, and the message resonated so strong. So there was no choice for me but to return. So it is, hey, for everybody listening, it's November 7 and 8. We know it's going to sell out again. So if you're interested, you can go and register ahead of everybody else. We actually already have 10 people registered, and it's not even until November. And you can register at trainingforwarriors.com in the certification section. And I look forward to not only seeing you there, Nathan, but everybody else as well. And I'm going to be, if this message resonated with you today with this interview, then now imagine 15 hours of it more. It's going to be just such a great event, and I cannot wait to return.
Excellent. Fantastic, Martin. Last thing, if people want to follow you and see some of your articles, where do they go?
You can see the blogs at trainingforwarriors.com. I would definitely recommend that. And probably the easiest place, Facebook. We've got a Training for Warriors page with over 105,000 likes on there, where people are always following what we do. And you can check me out on Instagram at @TheMartinRooney if you want to see some shots of my family and my travels. And I'm on Twitter as well. And I'm trying to think what that handle is. I think it's just Martin Rooney on there as Twitter. But in any case, you'd be able to find out some of that stuff just from checking us out online. And my hope is read the blogs, guys. Check out some of the videos. And I really hope you gain the inspiration you're looking for to help somebody else to bring out their warrior.
Excellent. All right. Fantastic. So that was our interview with Martin Rooney from Training for Warriors. So once again, if you're in Australia, I highly recommend you come along in Sydney and check out the workshop. Truly inspirational. Thanks again for your time, Martin, and I'll see you in November.
My pleasure, and cheers.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed getting some insight into Training for Warriors and really what's behind the whole philosophy. Now, really lucky to get Martin on the show. Martin's doing a lot of courses at the moment. His schedule is absolutely hectic, so really lucky to have him join us. So as we spoke about, if you want to find out more, trainingforwarriors.com, go to the events and you'll see when he's coming to a city near you. Love to hear what you thought about the podcast. So if you've got some time, take a minute to rate us and let us know what you think. Thanks, guys.